first, our top story. Wars of independence are invariably bloody, and countries with histories of atrocities committed during them take time to come to terms with their past. Bangladesh became independent from Pakistan in 1971, and it's only in the last 3 years that a war crimes court has been trying those who it believes were responsible for crimes against humanity. Today, that court has found a veteran Islamist leader guilty of involvement in atrocities carried out more than 4 decades ago. Ghulam Azam was strongly opposed to Bangladesh's independence and sided with the Pakistani army. Mr. Azam, now 90 years old, has been sentenced to 90 years in jail.
He has been tried for 5 charges and all the 5 charges have been proved. He has been found guilty of all the 5 charges and the tribunal came to a conclusion that he deserves highest penalty of death. But considering his age and ailments in prison, he has been awarded different terms of sentence, totaling a sentence of 90 years or unto death in prison.
That was one of the Attorneys General, M.K. Rahman, announcing Ghulam Azam's sentence. Ghulam Azam's Jamaat-e-Islami party has called a nationwide strike there, and there have already been protests against the decision on the streets of Dhaka. Well, let's first get reaction to this verdict from Ghulam Azam's son, Salman Al Azami. He lives in Manchester in the north of England.
Our reaction is very clear. It is unfortunate. We reject this guilty verdict. This court has once again proved that it is a political court, political trial by a political party, and everything that has been done is just appeasing the political party that is in power, because they could not provide a single evidence to prove that my father was guilty of any of the alleged crimes. And even the presiding judge today said that the prosecution has not been able to prove his direct involvement in the killings, yet they come up with this ridiculous judgment of 90 years.
Have you spoken to your father?
I've not been able to speak to him for the last 18 months because he is in jail and he can't speak with anyone. Just my mother and my brother are able to see him for half an hour every fortnight.
And what news do you have from them about his state of health, his state of mind, and any reaction to this guilty verdict?
I've been getting regular updates from my mother and brother about my father's health. His health has not been very steady, as you understand. He is almost 91. We do feel that the court, he's in hospital prison cell, and the hospital and the prison authorities have not been able to actually treat him well in that. But otherwise, he's okay. He's managing. And as far as today's verdict is concerned, I spoke with my brother, and he said my father was, without any reaction at all. I mean, he knows what's happening, and he's aware that it is a political judgment.
You say it's a political judgment, and there are many people who will be inclined to agree with you. But I just wonder if you can talk us through what you knew about your father's involvement in the War of Independence as you were growing up.
My father was a leader of a very small political party, and that party was opposed to the War of Independence, so no doubt about that. But that was a political decision. So he was giving statements in favor of United Pakistan, and that's all. He was not involved in forming any paramilitary forces as they allege. They can't prove that. They couldn't prove it. And he was not involved in any atrocities whatsoever that they if I can give you one example from this court. On the account number 5, he's been convicted and jailed for 40 years for writing a letter that eventually led to a killing of an individual. The prosecution said that, and the judgment also says that. But interestingly, that letter has not been produced in the court. So you are giving a judgment and sentencing him for 40 years for a letter, and that letter is nowhere.
Are you saying categorically that your father was not involved at all in helping the Pakistani army because he so vehemently opposed independence for Bangladesh?
Politicians give vehement statements, very strong statements. I mean, that doesn't mean that someone is involved in the killings. And first of all, I categorically say that he was not involved. And it is the responsibility of the prosecution to prove, and the judges to give in the sentence, provide evidence that he was involved in that. His statements were for United Pakistan. There were strong statements, no doubt, but that was for United Pakistan. But did any of his statement lead to any atrocity, any killing, any murder, they could not provide any evidence for that.
Can it not be construed that a vehement statement in favour of staying with Pakistan in the early 1970s could have resulted in incitement to violence, which is one of the charges brought against him?
Well, incitement to violence, and a court of law, incitement violence means that someone incited a violence and a particular violent activity took place. So that has to be proved. It's just, you can't just say a general statement given, which is a strong statement given in support of United Pakistan, proves that he incited murder. You have to link the two, and the prosecution could not link the two because there was no evidence, and actually nothing happened because of his statements. And as I said, he was a leader of a very small political party. He had very little influence on what the Pakistani army would do.
I was speaking there to Salman Al Azami, who is the son of the man who has been sentenced to 90 years in jail, Ghulam Azam. Let's speak now to Meghna Guhathakurta, who lost her father in the fighting. She is on the line from Dhaka. Welcome to NewsHour. Meghna, just tell us what you make of what you've just heard, Salman Al Azami's defence of his father's innocence.
I think it's very superficial because I've got the verdict right in front of me, and it's not true that there is not evidence. He has been found to be charged on 5 accounts, 5 charges, 6 counts of conspiracy to commit crimes under Section 3(2) of the ICT Act, 3 counts of planning to commit crimes, 28 counts of incitement to commit crimes, 23 counts of complicity in crimes, and finally, the one that got him 30 years of imprisonment was the murder and torture as crimes against humanity. The charge alleges that Ghulam Azam directed Pyara Mia, a member of the peace committee, to kill Siru Mia and his sons because they were freedom fighters. I find in the context of all this that the sons, of course, as a son, he will be very emotional about it, but I think what he says is very superficial.
Tell us the circumstances in which your father was killed.
Well, my father was a professor of English literature at the University of Dhaka, and on the 25th of March, after 12 o'clock or around 12 o'clock, the Pakistan Army came and asked for my father, who was a provost of a non-Muslim hall, and he was taken out. He was asked his name and then his religion. My father gave his name, and his religion was Hindu. And after saying that, he was ordered to be shot. And he didn't die on the spot. He succumbed to his injuries later on in the hospital on 30th of March. But the army came back to search our house and asked for more men. And they also killed in front of us a professor of statistics named Munir Zaman and 3 other men in their family right in front of us.
This story, I'm certain, can be replicated by many, many people in Bangladesh. I want to ask you how you feel now about that period of history, which clearly is a very powerful and emotive one in the country's psyche. Do you think that this conviction and the previous convictions against other Jamaat-e-Islami leaders will now lay to rest this turbulent history of Bangladesh?
Well, it's not only about convictions, it's also about justice and the notion of justice that the people have. Right now, although you say in BBC that you've given only one aspect of the protest against the verdict, but there are other protests that the verdict was not strong enough. That means death penalty was not given. And there are people protesting that on the streets of Dhaka too. Unfortunately, I don't hear it on BBC. But however, I think the people, what is important is impunity against these war crimes, which has been proven. And so it has taken this many years. It has taken more than 40 years to bring these people to justice. And the notion of justice is that millions of people that crimes against humanity cannot go unpunished, and they need the ultimate punishment that the law can offer in this country.
Okay.
And that is only thing that the people will be satisfied that justice has been served.